Yo, so I'm going through and working on planning our curriculum for the month of July at Kaboom. So here's a little bit of what my process looks like. And I'm sorry, but I shaved my beard off by accident, so a little bit of stranger danger. So when it comes to my curriculum, right, I try and cycle through things at some sort of regularity, and I have three big topics that I look at that I want to cover in a given week. Okay, I have some sort of engagement that has to do with wrestling, whether that means going from the feet down to the floor or getting up off the floor back to your feet or keeping someone down, even sort of falls in that category for me. Second thing is I have a guarded scenario that I like to focus on, and then I have a pin or a submission, and usually those are linked together in terms of how we approach it. So when I'm looking at this curriculum, okay, I'm going to look back over the past couple weeks, and I have that in a little Excel sheet that sort of shows everything we've covered in our training sessions since January. And that's just big, broad overview, not super detailed. It's just sort of labels what the focus was in wrestling in terms of like a category, and then what particular things were we trying to emphasize from there. And same thing for the guarded scenario, same thing for whatever our pin submission sort of combination was there. This just lets me keep track of themes in a simple way so that I can be responsive and I can look back and be like, it's been a really long time since we've done X. Or, right now, for example, I just went back and I'm trying to figure out what should our submission focus be? Because it's pretty clear what I want to work on for guard and wrestling, but submission's a little hazy. So I just went back through the whole year and sort of like tallied how many times did I cover this, and this, so I can see like we've worked on Kimuras at least 4 times. Front triangle, probably going to make that our focus for what I want to go forward to. So like that's how I might decide that. So now we're looking at, okay, front and rear triangles might be our big focus. I'm probably not going to do both this month though, just because I want to expose our students to different sort of mechanics, right? So what I mean by that is our last month, a lot of stuff, actually all of our submissions, it was just arm bars and straight foot locks. And those both really have the same principles because there's straight joint locks, in the most basic sense, where it's all about attachment to that base joint with our hips and working from there, things like that. So I want to try and focus on some different mechanics this month. And I'm thinking, a triangle is an arm in strangle, which is one big broad category of submissions that I sort of look at when I'm thinking of like mechanics that I want to work on, right? But maybe it's also a good time for me to hit the Kimura, because the Kimura was also one of our lowest ones so far. Only 4 times, a lot of other things were 4 or 5 times already. Maybe Kimura is a perfect one because it can take me from arm in strangles, and then we get to work a little bit of like twisting joint locks, but also just the power of that like rotational control and how it can lead to everything else. I think that makes sense for us right now. So when I'm filling out my spreadsheet, because I'll start with the spreadsheet first and I'll look at the 4 weeks. So for me, the submission position, that we're going to focus on, it's going to be probably, we'll start front triangles. We'll go front triangles to start. And then we'll move on to Kimuras, or maybe I'll flip that because actually we just did some closed guard, so I don't want it to be too proximate right away. I think I'm going to go Kimuras for the first 2 weeks, and then rear triangles because there's a good connection there when you start playing the game, and hopefully some of my people can see that when we open it up. So now I can go onto my spreadsheet and I can type in that our submission focus is going to be our top side Kimura. Well, I'll just write Kimura generally. So Kimura, and then in my like notes about it, I'm going to write top side Kimura, boom. And then week 1 is going to be mostly on like core functions. So maintaining the control and separating hands. is like a big idea. Maybe even a little bit of getting that control. Our second week, we'll focus on some maintenance, but we'll also focus on just transitioning to any submission. Sort of using it as that launch pad for great offense when we're past the legs. So transition to finishing positions. And just off the top, I'm sort of hoping that this leads to people taking it to armbar connections and playing from there, or working into the back and playing from there to look to finish and strangle. I just want people to see that it's a great jump off point when I'm sort of thinking of what my intention might be for those 2 weeks. And the thing is, this will probably change like almost immediately, I'm a monster. I'm not recording my screen. I'm going to go ahead and also record my screen while I'm doing this, and maybe I'll do something cool. Maybe I won't. Maybe I suck. Who knows? We'll find out. But yeah, no camera, no mic. Boom. Just the screen. Yes, let's go. Nice. So we're recording our screen. So this is real quick, since I was talking about this. This is my spreadsheet, right? I have our week standing focus, which is really more like feet to floor, but I know what I mean, right? The note, the guard, the note, the sub/pin, and the note. You notice I'm not super detailed sometimes on what these look like, but just enough that I need. Here we're working some neutral, supine, whatever. You can sort of see how I flow through, and I just track just enough, because I'm not going to put the games and activities I play. I just want to know what were we thinking about more broadly. And you can tell here I got a little bit more focused on what I want my notes to be and show and share, and just, reinforcing. It's weird, I had a big stretch here on front headlock, but I think that's because we were sort of using it for both our wrestling exchange and the submission exchange. So I was teaching all the different utilities of it, probably. But also, it had been a really long time since we had done guillotines and learning how to like strangle from the front. So I think I just had a deep dive to sort of like spread that within my club and get it back really like fresh and juicy, right? Because sometimes that's important. You realize that a thing is just like waning in the group as a whole. So you want to go ahead and really like reinforce it once, so then I can dose it a little bit lighter in the future going forward. So that's sort of what happened there. We also, I also had a big run on single legs. I'm pretty sure I was probably in a really intense wrestling study sort of session at that point, and I just wanted to. But you also see, I had really connected it to sort of guard work and other things like that as well. But again, sometimes my curriculum isn't so pretty that I do 2 week themed blocks. Sometimes I not have to, but I feel like there's going to be a really big return on me doing a deep dive on something. So that's what happened there. Boom, pretty standard stuff. And it's interesting because for something like supine, right? Sometimes it's all about the top player. Like you can see here, it's literally all just about camping and good passing and stuff. But of course, there's always a bottom player skill that's worked there. I'm just trying to think of what are they not doing that I think they need to sort of be effective. And this was sort of like my focus there. You can sort of see what our focuses were in a lot of these situations, playing with it. Just so you can sort of see my high level planning. So, okay, check it out. Here we are on the weeks we are at. I actually need to add some more weeks. Boom. Boom. Add a gang of columns. Hold on. This is super boring. Oh, I already did. Dude, I suck. I suck and I already did this. Boom. So, while I love coaching, I sort of suck sometimes at technology. But just adding enough. I'll just add enough here just to extend this out through the month. One more week it looks like. Boom. Yeah, that should cover it, okay? So I sort of started here just because it was something that I thought was missing. Let's go to my standing stuff. So I have some broad categories, and this is actually going to be sort of great. You'll get an insight into like how I think of just jiu-jitsu generally. I've sort of evolved it, and I keep themes in my head that aren't literally on this sheet, but you know. So we did some rear body stuff, and for us, this was actually all about, 1 week was all about keeping someone down in a turtle. And sometimes, you know, I'll add in what actually happened, you know. They're doing their main intentions, and for me, main intentions when you're in defense is get up, get on top, get under. Under sort of being guard. Here it was a lot about go behinds versus defensive intentions, and we did a bunch of different activities sort of around that. Okay, but we did some rear bodies, single legs, front body lock, which for me is any chest to chest standing stuff. Usually it ends up being underhook centric, right? Games around underhooks and stuff like that, which is what it was. We did doubles and then back to rear body. You know, we had a while where I just did a hand fighting sort of stint, you know, of really focusing on that. Back to my deep dives, right? I had a period here where I was sort of deep diving. This is actually bad. This should be, just for my own notes, this should be single leg, and we were focused on sort of working from that cross hip or inside hip position. Rear body, but you can see I'm pretty like systematic. So just looking at like my pattern, I know it would probably be a good idea to work on some double leg stuff. And double legs, I'm just meaning 2 hands against legs attacks, whatever that looks like. Just playing here, you know, last time I know we did this, which was sort of back here. It was a lot of like lock double, locked hands under the glutes. We'll probably work a lot more open hands type situations. So I'm going to go open hands, boom. Probably not even without dropping a knee. It's sort of like what I want to work towards, just to see what we can get working there. Here, for this double leg, it's probably going to be coming up. So coming up into a double is probably sort of our focus. So we'll do it, you know, just, I really like to try and connect wrestling whenever I can with playing seated guard, just because I always feel like they're the same thing and the same sort of core things are super important. So that's what I'll run there. So we did closed guard, supine, seated, half closed, supine, seated. Ooh, we did a gang of seated. And you can see it's because it was tied in to my wrestling up here. Like a gang of seated. That's a long seated block for us, but I think it's all because it was very connected. I think we have some benefit here on probably half guard is where we want to settle. And let's see, last time we played half guard, it was really top player focused, and I remember it was really just a little bit about maybe dog fighting and stuff like that, but not really. It was mostly just about the core posture. It was like a posture battle more so than exiting or making something happen. It was about who can dominate and keep a good posture and really getting people dialed in on that. The previous time we did half guard, it was sort of knee shieldy stuff, which was from what I recall, it was about clearing knee shields and getting to better guards from a knee shield type of situation, right? So that retention-y aspect of knee shields, not really going into attacks. And then that was the last time. Bro, only worked half guard twice. Knowing that, I'm really inclined to make this sort of like dogfight centric in terms of like the slices of the game I want to pick. And it'll probably be pretty loose the way like I write it here, because I'm going to play some initial games just around positioning and whatever, but I'll go there. So that's like my high level overview. So double, rear body, singles. Man, so we're going to play some underhook stuff. So really, I still call it front body lock. Front body lock. I don't know why, but I just think of it in that way. I'll have a better term eventually, but for now, this is what I've been writing. thinking of this, there's been a lot of curiosity in the club about sort of this underhook stuff that we were doing last time, which was sort of, so maybe one half I'll go using the underhook offensively, so attacking second leg with hands, like knee tap type scenarios, or dropping, getting back in onto a leg, and maybe like around going behind. Just, I'm thinking really broad, right? But I know on this second one, I'm going to go to using the overhook offensively, which is going to be a lot of like Uchimata style scenarios that I would like to try and have them understand that power of being able to step in front, but also sort of those opportunities where they can, hit people backwards or get all the way square themselves. But we'll sort of focus on games that sort of emphasize that Uchimata stuff, just because it's a skill that we don't really use in the room a ton. And then, within both these, there will just be general stuff around locking hands and whatnot. Looking at half guard, or not half guard, but our next thing, it's going to be probably seated guard. And the reason I'm like pretty down to stay on a routine cycle is I know that in the past I've done a sort of deeper dive, so now I can get back into more like a rotating thing. And then every so often, usually after like a tournament or something like that, and I really get a chance to evaluate the group, I can see what they really needed and they're missing out on or whatever, and I'll maybe do a deep dive. But just looking at this, so seated was a lot about highest thing. This week we actually skipped it because we just did a gang of wrestling. This was a period we were doing like half an hour, 40 minutes of wrestling in the session, but did some forcing body locks versus heisting and hooks. Cool. If I go further back, we went around posting and building connections, getting up, getting under. This was a lot of seated versus standing, it looks like. I think just skill-wise for the group right now, I'd like to play seated, right? And I want to make it around building chest-to-chest connections, which for me is pinch headlocks, shoulder crunch, double underhook style positions, rather than like unattached seated scenario. Yeah, and I'll sort of build around that as the theme. And then the second one, maybe a little bit more top player focused and what I want the activities to do, which I think will be sort of forcing half against it, against seated as the focus, mainly because it'll also allow me to keep touching on some of that bottom player stuff and how they can sort of recover and get like half butterfly reps in secretly. Some half exposure here too, because I'm going to play until they can actually clear that secondary tool, meaning there's no butterfly hook in, there's no knee shield in, chest to chest, hip to hip is sort of going to be the goal there against that seated player. Yeah, but I also, you know what? No, I'm going to make it forcing half or disengaging to standing. This way they can focus on the two big transitions, I think. That'll be good. Because when they go disengage to standing, hey, we have to enter the legs and put them on their hips right away before they get away, or we have to wrestle up right away, which hopefully ties into a bunch of the shit from the week prior. And then, yeah, I need to do a little bit of rear triangle stuff, I think. Is this a good focus? Here, it's going to be just... Oh, this is sort of dumb. But yeah, like, all the way locked in scenarios. So, using it as a control hub is going to be one of our major focuses. And I really just want them to get a lot of touches on all the different ways you can sort of finish. And, you know, I do that a lot just through, hey, we're going to play this game. There's all these things we can attack anytime you have a head and an arm, you have like an arm in choke position with your legs because your hands are so free to attack. Makes it super strong. So that'll be sort of the theme that I'll talk about. The second week, it'll probably be more about the transitional aspect of it. So things like trapping and transitioning from the back. I'll probably still start with control hub from rear triangle, right? Trapping and transitioning from the back. And probably playing like, what do they call it? Like a seated head and arm as like just good start points for me to play. And that'll be a little bit of how I start this as the broad overview level and what I'm thinking of looking back at what's already happened this year and what I want to have happen right now. And you'll notice I'm real broad right now because what's going to happen is I'm going to have like a 1.0 draft of my week 1. That'll go over sort of this dogfight centric stuff. You know, it sort of sucks that I'm doing dogfight. I really feel like maybe it should be more single leg adjacent because of this. Shit, I might change that. But I just know we haven't worked this scenario a ton. Now I'm tripping out, you know, because I want to make sure, hey, how can I best use this time? You know what? Plot twist. We're doing some extra singles, but this is going to be... So we're going to be looking at the single as sort of an extension of a dogfight. And this will just be more of a single on the mat from like in front. You know, I'm already sprawled on with a single. Yeah, cool. And then this, you know, I'm gonna make it knee shield focused. So knee shield with emphasis on transitions, which is building tools like underhooks or butterfly hooks, scoops, etc. I think it's gonna be my big focus there, just learning there. And then here, right, because that last one is really, last week there, really trying to focus on bottom player. Just like sometimes I think of like curriculum, like I just want to give bottom player chances to figure out different tools. So like my goal in that one is I'd play a bunch of games that can make them see that we can get advantages from our knee shield on the top side, which is like the way we use an underhook or throwing a butterfly hook or something like that, but also on the near side, which can be scoops, drags, etc., you know. And then my second week, I think it's just going to be retention, maybe some like standing up as like a win is something that I think I would like the bottom player to focus on. And just sort of being able to keep them down for the top player, you know, getting hip to hip. Or, yeah, super broad there, because I usually think like half guard. It's not like the super, sort of a messy scramble, right? Not a scramble, but it's like fairly transition-y in nature. So that's my focus there, and that's what we're going to do on the adult side. Now, I would repeat this for our youth program, where I've done very much a similar style of planning and whatnot for them, and we just repeat the process, right? Of course, I have some different considerations because it's a youth program and how we want to rotate through and whatever else. But this is sort of high level, at a glance planning, how I approach it, what I do. Hopefully you find this super interesting and hopefully useful just for you, because I know sometimes you can be like, okay, but now what about like curriculum? How do I make a curriculum? This is sort of the best attempt at a curriculum because it just allows me to make sure that I touch on areas often enough to help develop a well-rounded grappler. And for me, well-rounded just means that you know the 80% so you can choose where you want to specialize on the 20, which is why my themes are fairly broad, right? You'll notice they mostly are just about like tools that you can use, common exchanges that happen in every match and whatnot. And they don't really get too deep into any certain set of configurations or things like that. So, thanks for checking it out. Peace.